Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Subbu Peteti, and on behalf of ADI Hyderabad, I welcome you all to the webinar on exploring alternative livelihoods for the craft sector during the COVID-19 pandemic. We will have about 50 minutes of panel discussion and 10 minutes of Q&A. And today I'm very privileged to introduce you all to this wonderful panel and the moderator of the day. First, we have Bina, the founder of Head of Design at Creative Bee, and also Senior Consultant UN Projects. Hi, Bina. Thanks for being on the show.
Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone.
And next, we have Renu, a graphic designer, founder at Deckle, and she's also a co-founder of Slow and WeRecycle. Hi, Renu.
Hi Subbu. Hi, everyone.
Next, we have Shilpa Sharma, creative entrepreneur, craft evangelist, founder of Breakaway, and the co-founder of Jaypore. Welcome aboard, Shilpa.
Thank you very much for having me here.
Next, I'd like to introduce Kirti Poonia, the head of Okhai. She's one among the top 130 women transforming India, as per Niti Aayog. Welcome onto the show, Kirti.
Hi, Subbu. Thank you. Hi, everyone. And it's Okhai.
Okhai, I'm sorry. And we have as moderator Namisha Naidu, the founder and the principal designer at and also a design educator at Rooted Design. Welcome aboard, Namisha.
Thank you, Subbu.
Yeah. And we also have Varsha Govil, a student from NIFT Hyderabad, who will be sketching throughout the session for us. And we are looking forward to seeing your sketch at the end of the webinar, Varsha. Welcome aboard. It's an honor to have all of you on this panel today, and thanks a ton for accepting this invite from us. And before I hand over the show to Namisha, I would quickly like to introduce ADI for those of you who are new to ADI. ADI is the only professional network of design practitioners and students set up as a non-profit organization to promote and align the interests of design professionals in India. While Hyderabad chapter is just 2 years young, ADI is about it's established in 2010, and today it's a vibrant community of more than 16,000 members, and we have about 800 plus professionally registered designers pan India with more than 6 chapters. We have 2 more chapters in the pipeline. For more details, please visit our website www.adi.org.in. And without any further ado, I hand over the show to Namisha, and I would like to go into isolation.
Thank you so much, Subbu. It's great to be in great company here, and a very warm welcome to our attendees. I can see a lot of them still joining in, and I do hope today's discussions shed some light and give us some insight into alternative livelihoods in these unprecedented times. But before we start with the questions, how about knowing our viewers with this poll? Anshu, would you like to shoot the first poll? Okay, so the question is, would you like to engage in a barter system instead of an economic transaction as a way of life? First option sounds interesting, can give it a try. Yes, that's the way to solve a lot of our problems. No, that way that's too primitive. Have money, will buy. And panelists can vote as well. And we have a lot of them opting for sounds interesting, can give it a try. That's 63%. And just 13% think that's the way to solve a lot of our problems. No one seems to have the money to buy. Okay, thank you so much for that poll. And we'll start with our panel discussion. The COVID has become a great equalizer. Irrespective of how much we earned before the pandemic, income generation has become a big worrying question mark for all of us. And crafts from India, which are largely non-essential, bought largely by those with disposable incomes, have been badly hit. And with a lot of stock unsold, no immediate relief, no work in hand, artisans are a distressed lot. Shilpa, you've been a serial entrepreneur. You've created initiatives across craft, travel, and hospitality. So my first question is for you. What do you think about the idea of an alternative livelihood?
So I think alternative livelihoods are actually the need of the hour. I mean, whilst a lot of us, including Kirti here, who will talk about their experience of Okhai, will continue to do what we must do. The truth is that the craft sector now does need to veer towards alternative livelihoods just to be able to see themselves through this phase. There are enough and more theories about what alternative livelihoods actually mean. So in my head, I mean, the way to address this is really there are two ways of looking at alternative livelihoods. One part of the options could be self-sustaining for local economies, which means that whatever means of livelihood these artisans are going to look at, are going to explore, they're all self-sustaining for themselves and their local communities, which means that they're not really dependent on outsiders for business. The other part of alternative livelihoods is really catering to orders placed by, let's say, urban communities. It could even be simple things like muslin bags for, shopping, because the world is now waking up to the fact that we have to minimize the use of single-use plastic and disposable packing material and so on and so forth. There might just be a huge opportunity for alternative livelihoods in the form of very, very simple muslin bags to be produced in very large quantities using very basic skills for supermarkets, for e-commerce, websites. So that's an example, of course. And then when I look at self-sustaining alternative livelihood options, we're really talking about the whole food processing sector. I mean, there is just so much opportunity in agri. It's also a function of what people are going to be able to do. You can't try and fit square pegs in round holes. So we have to be mindful of the skill levels of these artisans. What is it that they're good at? What is it that they can get good at without it without it requiring huge amount to be invested in training? This is the reason why I said muslin bags are a great example, because, I mean, if the likes of Food Hall and DMart and Big Bazaar took this initiative and said, okay, we're doing away with plastic bags and all we want is muslin bags, suddenly that opens up a huge amount of opportunity even for the elderly and the simple skilled artisans. So yeah, I mean, there are two ways of looking at this, and I think in this day and age, I mean, now more than ever before, we have to all look inwards,
Right.
and try and do more and more of what we do for ourselves and not necessarily for people outside. Look, I mean, tourism started off as an alternate means of livelihood for the hill economies. I mean, I was chatting with some friends in the Nilgiris and then in Uttarakhand. And whilst tourism has opened up many jobs, the truth is that with tourism having taken a backseat for the foreseeable future, all of these alternate sources of livelihood which go beyond, let's say, craft, are having to relook and rethink about, what their options might be. So it might be that, the women artisans must look at tailoring as an option. The men might want to look at, animal husbandry or at food processing. I mean, food processing, I think the food space is just exploding.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah. So, and I'm sure, the other panelists will have lots to add over here, but yeah, that's my perspective.
That's great, because we have Renu here who's also into food processing, but we'll come to Renu a little later. Kirti, you run a social business with Okhai, which is also a fashion brand. Do you even see a need for alternative livelihood with the craftswomen that you work with? And what is it that Okhai does? If you could give us a sense of that, that would be great.
Great. So we were a bunch of 2,300 women before the pandemic began, and an absolute manufacturing organization that had just learned how to sell online on its own. So for the last 5 years, we've been growing. I'm going to share my screen and show you what we do. We make hand embroidered, hand block printed, hand woven garments. And we've been doing collection after collection and growing for the last 5 years. We were about 350 women at the start of 2015, and now we're 2,300 women. Now, when the pandemic did start, we were all very worried, I think, like all the other organizations in the country. But we were thinking about alternate ways to diversify our company, and we thought, let's revive some of the things that we used to make many years ago. And we started focusing on home products. We realized that hand embroidered, people were focusing on how to make their homes more beautiful, how to buy art in the form of craft, how to support the industry. And they wanted to do it with things that would make their space, their home offices more beautiful. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and share a little story with you. I think March, when the lockdown started, we sent home work to all the women in the villages. And that was the first thing that we wanted to do, because we wanted to make sure that if we were getting paid sitting at home, they had to have work sitting at home. So all the auto rickshaws, they went through all the villages and dropped off all the work. I think soon after, everyone was generating funds for relief. And I felt like, hey, maybe we should be doing that too. So I called up one of our leading artisans, Rami Ben, and I said that, is there anyone in Okhai, in all the women, that needs relief funding? Do you think that there is no money for food? Should we do this? Should we do a campaign for you? And she said, I don't think so, but let me call you back. And she had a discussion with all the women in the village, and she called me back and she said, nahi, hame bilkul bhi nahi chahiye. We have our Okhai savings for the last 5 years, and we are going to use those savings, and we are just fine. And you know, I had goosebumps, and I have goosebumps telling you this story right now, because I felt that that was impact. And that was the proof of our work in the last 5 years, that we did not need relief funding. All the artisans got paid in March and April. Even the tailors who didn't have any work, we paid them. We took the average of last 3 months and we just paid them. Then the lockdown started getting heavier on us, and we realized that we needed to do something. At the same time, all the sister organizations that we had known for many, many months, somebody like Kadam Heart or Rang Sutra or Women Weave, we've known all of each other for so long, right? And we've had an ecosystem of people who can help each other. And by now, Okhai had about 45,000 customers and over 100,000 followers online. So we thought of creating pages for them on the Okhai website and helping all of them sell through this customer base that we had. And we grew the first month. I think we were down to 10% of our sales at the start of April. And now we are higher than 50% of our last year's sales.
Excellent.
So we are at a point where we are having the best quarter ever. We're helping people, and in the process of helping others, we are helping ourselves.
That's amazing. It's amazing to hear that there's one business here which is not related to hand sanitizers or technology, which is doing so well. So that's very motivational and inspiring to see how the women have become so self-independent and do not need support. That's great. Bina, the next question is for you. Do you think craft persons could consider non-craft alternatives? Or would you suggest it's best they use the same skill sets that they have already and diversify?
Someone like me who spent over 2 decades, elevating the craft to its best quality and to the global standards, and by number of training to artisan, we kept on saying make the world-class handloom, that should go from India. It is very painful to answer this question, Namisha, but the times have changed, and I think alternate living and alternate livelihood is, as Shilpa said, is call of the day. We just cannot escape that situation. But Kirti's story is very inspiring, and I think this is a temporary cloud, and we all must, have a bright sunny day soon. But it's a survival problem, and so the diversification is a good option. And Shilpa has explained, and Kirti also has explained that already diversification started happening, and creative design fraternity started helping artisan collectives to develop n number of products which could be in demand now. But if you think of the margins that they bring and the the quantity that each artisan doing, I think it may not be enough. And then we need to think of a parallel alternative livelihood, which I don't know, somehow since 2 years I've been, training women weavers who are like most underprivileged, and ancillary workers also along with them, and forming them into small collectives across Telangana. And this idea was toying in my mind that, artisan, the lowest end weavers and ancillary workers not earning enough.
Yeah.
Even the whole month income doesn't come to about 6,000 rupees. So there is a need for a parallel income. And then suddenly the breakdown happens, lockout happens, and you are really worried about the whole lot of artisan. You are yourself, your organization, your core artisan team also doesn't have enough work, but those who are in the villages, whom we have trained some time ago, they really don't have anything on hand. So this is where I started thinking that, Telangana and Andhra, in these households, the spice making and pickles very deeply rooted. And last summer when I was doing training in Koelagudam village, the women were not there for the training, and I was asking them what happened. They said we are all collectively making spices like chili powder and turmeric powder in so and so's house. And then they all came out from that house and said, ma'am, next year we'll come and make spices for your household also.
So they were bunking your workshop for spice workshop.
Yeah, because that's the time, a certain period where they have to, stock up for the entire year. And somehow I was thinking that, statutory requirements for food and the licenses and all that is not easy, and it's not easy to diversify. So it was in back of my mind. And then suddenly we are at a crossroads. We started thinking what is next, and suddenly I see Renu Rao, beautiful packaging, food stuff. Renu Rao is a designer, also worked extensively in craft, in wooden craft and lacquer craft from Etikopaka, and she has a paper company. So I was thinking one bold person that I'm coming across who's really done it, and I was happy about it. But the thing is, I'm now going to share quickly my screen, which shows the products that Shilpa just talked about and many more, but mostly in agri and food sector. This is, you can see, sorry. Yeah. As you see here, you have nowadays, the world is conscious about the chemical and the side effects, and everyone love organic. So the common USP in the products that I'm showing here is that they are organic, handmade, eco-friendly, and can be produced in cottage environment. So there are cleansers for utensils, there are detergents, there are body and bath products, then there are jam, pickles, spices, honey, ghee, and also now there is a immunity booster, a drink called Kada, which everybody is drinking, and I heard one export company started already marketing it as a powder form. So these are the products that I'm saying that the value chain of these products is quite similar to that of I should stop sharing the screen now. Yeah. So the value chain of these products were quite similar to that of handloom, except the last two links where packaging and branding is required. So my experience had been that if anything that is falling in that value chain in rural environment, it is easy to adopt for artisan. And if this is not a permanent solution, we are not asking them to part with their high skills and doing this all the time, but this could be coming really handy in next 2 months. If someone like more Renu Raos can, go across, start working with these collectives, which are already formed as collectives. And, we can have some success stories coming out. If they can earn, each household can earn some 7,000-8,000 rupees. 8,000 rupees is the least that I am expecting, because then they will have little raw material for their loom running also,
Correct.
So this is my take on it.
Yeah, thank you so much. I think all of us are looking for alternative livelihoods, irrespective of whether we are craftspeople or not. And this is quite interesting that you shared these options that can be pursued in the same value chain. Renu Rao, like Shilpa had mentioned about food produce being a very viable alternative livelihood, you've transitioned your artisans from who were working with your paper products at Deckle to working for the organic food products brand Slow. So what have your biggest challenges been, and which ones have you not been able to address yet?
So when I thought about what to do next, when the lockdown brought my business literally to zero, because I've been doing only direct marketing through my stores. So when there are no people coming to buy the products, and they're all lifestyle products or giftables. So what do I do with my staff who've been with me for the last 25 years? How do I keep them and pay them their salaries and constructively use them? And since I already owned a farm for the last 5 years, I have an organic farm and I've been farming. This seemed like the natural transition for me, is to move to foods. And that's when, slow happened in the lockdown. So,
oh, that's nice.
Yeah. So what I thought was to do high value products with the produce from the farm to begin with, because access to other farmers was difficult during the lockdown. So I started doing that, and once my staff started coming back to work last month, I've been using them to make value-added products like powders and pickles and jams with whatever produce from the farm. And what we will do from here on is to, we already are in touch with farmer groups, but we can also look at craft groups, to do the value addition when our volumes increase, because we plan to do this in a big scale, because I think food and nutritive good food is the way out from these pandemics.
Absolutely. So which challenges have you not been able to address yet?
Challenges was actually to convert my staff to doing food. It wasn't easy because they've always done paper products. They are craftsmen, and to tell them now to do work with food, there was a little resistance in the beginning, but I tried to make them understand that this might not be forever. This is a stopgap for you guys. Once things pick up, I can always get others to do this work, but just now it's a stopgap for my artisans.
Okay, okay, that's really nice to know how you've managed to move from paper products to manage your work during pandemic. Thank you, Renu. I think we'll go for another poll for the audience. Anshu, could you show the second poll? Have you ever handcrafted a product for a functional requirement? Yes, I have. Don't know how to. I'm learning to. Why make when you can buy? Panelists can vote as well. Okay, great. So it looks like we have a lot of makers in the audience. 75% have voted, yes, I have. That's wonderful. So we'll go on to the next stage of our questions, which are about challenges. I remember visiting Pedana, which is a small town near Machilipatnam, and I was so amazed to see the dynamics of that village. Everything about that village was woven around weaving. The public spaces, street sizing happening, the verandas, the private spaces, the delegation of work across family members, their sense of self-worth and identity. And the other part is that there are a large number of these people are the middle-aged and the elderly. So when it comes to transitioning or trying out an alternative livelihood, Kirti, what do you think you have worked with providing for economic and social empowerment for the women at Okhai? What do you think would be the biggest challenge for craftswomen seeking an alternative livelihood during the pandemic, coming from the context that I just mentioned?
One of the biggest challenges is that all the women artisans specifically, they work from home. So they expect that the work comes to the doorstep.
Okay.
Now, everyone wanting to help and wanting to do something is an organization in an urban setup in India. And during the lockdown, most urban cities are under severe lockdown, and rural towns and villages are actually not under lockdown. Like on the coast of Gujarat, there is absolutely no case. So they are not under lockdown. So that communication between women wanting to work from home and brands wanting to help them, be it food, be it tourism, it is going to be very difficult and challenging to connect the two. There are several ways in which artisans are reaching out. I have got so many messages from kids of artisans who are now on Instagram, running Instagram accounts for their parents and their craft. And they are trying to reach out to us on Okhai's Instagram, my Instagram, and they're asking us to repost about their craft and or give them some work. So there are all of these artisans who are trying to reach out, but it'll be a communication gap that will be one of the biggest problems. The second thing is trust. It's very difficult for them to right now trust who is ordering their saris. There have been cases where artisans have shipped saris and no money has come to them. They have been cheated. There have been very big cases like this also. All the WhatsApps that you're getting on, please buy from this artisan. Many cases are there where they have, it's not the artisan's photograph, it's not the correct name, it's only the details that are all false. Of course, there is a very big need to identify what could work in the rural economy that they could supply to, and then help them sell to their neighbors. In this also, we are facing a huge amount of communication gap. We have a coconut fiber cluster that used to make puja Ganeshjis that nobody is going to buy from the urban sector right now because transportation will not happen. So we were hoping to make something which their neighbors or village folk will buy. But it has been so difficult for them to come to a center, do the sampling, create a prototype. So what we are trying to do is create very strong tech packs of design, which could just be sent to them. A local office could take a printout and they would be able to construct the prototype on their own just by looking at that document. And we're creating a forum of designers willing to help artisans.
Oh, that's nice.
And trying to connect the two together. The third problem is existing stocks. A lot of artisans have their money blocked in existing stocks. I knew an artisan who said that I need to generate relief funds for food, but we have 400 bed covers. And that's, again, one of the biggest challenges, that how do we get working capital flowing in there?
Right.
So in many cases, what we are doing is that if we can see that an artisan group is trustworthy and that they have stock with them, maybe we don't want to buy that stock, but we do know that eventually they can make it. We're looking at a grant in the form of an advance, which is like, okay, we can help you right now. And we know that you are able to do this much on our platform month to month. And so we'll be able to fuel that money in and recover it in a few months.
Okay, that's yes, that gives a good insight, yeah, into the kind of challenges and the kind of effort that you're putting in. I was very curious to know about the support group that you've created for designers. If you could share it, if that's something people could join, maybe you could share it in the chat window, and I think designers and others.
Right. So, it's called Design for Good. So what happens is usually designers hire artisans, right? And the artisans are paid for the sampling. The designer owns the design and then sells it and then retains the profit. So we are reversing the model. We are convincing artisans to hire designers. We will pay designers a wage or fee rather, and artisans will own that design. They can pitch it to many buyers, platforms, everyone, but they will retain the designs. So what we've done, it's a Google form where we are collecting details of designers. It's in the link in bio on my Instagram. So any designer who has the ability to create technical versions of their design, which are very, very strong communication documents, which an artisan can then read and create that prototype.
Okay, that's great. So we'll all get our portfolios ready to be selected by the craftspeople. That's an interesting shift of across the table.
This is the time for business model innovation. This is that time.
Yes, definitely.
Absolutely. And that's a very interesting model you mentioned. Shilpa, I spoke about the middle-aged and the elderly being a large part of the craft sector. How do you think they can adapt to earning their livelihood outside of the craft?
So one of the things that I mentioned at the very outset when we started this conversation was really to look at simple a product which does not require tremendous amount of skills, does not require complex tailoring, but just muslin bags, right? For example, because I think the whole packaging sector is going in for a massive explosion, right? I mean, every day you see some companies making an announcement about their commitment to doing away with plastic, doing away with, any kind of material which is single use. So I mean, muslin bags is one. I mean, at Jaypore, for example, for the longest time, the bags that were being used to ship our products. I mean, of course, they went into cartons because courier companies were not wired to be carrying anything in soft packaging. But the muslin bag that went along with the product really carried the story of the group that was making the bags, for example. So that's one space. The other thing also is that, I mean, there is repackaging of product. Like I was saying, food is becoming bigger and bigger with every passing day. So I know of a lot of organizations which are now doing individual packing from bulk packs, right? Of food product, like where it could be pulses, it could be spices, it could be condiments, and these are, I mean, repacking into smaller packs are very easy for anyone to do, especially the older segment in the amongst the craftsmen. And then of course there is stuff that can be done around recycled product. I mean, this could be, let's say, beeswax is a derivative of honey. And beeswax is fairly easy to work with in terms of converting, beeswax into soap, into lip balms, into butters. And those kind of trainings can be run at very, very minimal costs for groups by organizations. Let's say that there's a Keystone Foundation in the Nilgiris who's doing this. Just this morning, I was looking up the work of Seva. I mean, they run the Seva Grameen Mahila Hart a group, which is really all about diverting women artisans into giving them the option of going into let's say horticulture or into baking or into papads and pickles and masalas, for example. And these are all things that can be done without people really having the right skill, and being trained for it. I mean, women inherently are so gifted that there is so much that comes naturally to them. Their ability to pick up, a work, and their ability to understand something and just run with it is so strong that it doesn't really take them very much to. And I mean, there are organizations that have been built on the strength of this. Whether you look at WIT, which had a huge presence in Bombay once upon a time. I think they're still around, Women's India Trust. Or whether you look at Lijjat Papad, or whether, so many of these organizations which are so focused on creating these opportunities. And my point is that, I think the time has come to try and build your sustenance around you so that your dependence on external economies reduces dramatically, and you're all doing things to cater to each other, for, your own requirements. So, yeah, I mean, those are a few things that can be done. Of course, there are things like beauty parlors and, so on. I mean, I know in the hills, for example, I mean, there's a group called Himjoli, which is embarked on an initiative called Udyam. And, anybody, I'll share links in the chat window after I'm done. But, Udyam's now actually encouraging entrepreneurship in the hills, in Kumaon and in Garhwal, where young or not so young men and women are being invited, are being given loans between 50,000 rupees and some 6 or 7 lakhs to be able to embark on a venture, right? Which could be just a simple beauty parlor in their backyard, where the local women from the neighborhood can come for simple things. I mean, elderly women could be doing so many ancillary jobs in a setup like this, for example. So for those who are willing and have the hunger, they will find a way to bring themselves up to speed, to contribute and be able to earn a living off it. And I think, the opportunities are immense. Namisha, we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, hunger will drive all of us to adapt, and I think women find it easier naturally to adapt to situations. So that those are very good insights into how the people who cannot move very fast into alternative livelihoods can still work around these measures. Thank you, Shilpa. So Renu, my next question is for you. Economics play a very critical role in defining how the crafts how viable the whole cycle becomes for the craftsperson. How, in your experience, do the economics of diversified products work?
It's a little too early for me to talk about the economics, but given the fact that, the world is now looking at nutrition and, organic, going back to natural growing of food, I think this is the only way forward. And I feel that if you're able to give a good quality product to the market, we definitely can work. I mean, our economies will definitely work. So I don't see the economic viability being such a problem at all when it comes to food, because food is an absolute necessity and good, nutritious food is just the way forward. So I'm pretty confident about this being something that will succeed.
And what have your challenges been in organizing the economic factors of your initiative?
See, right now, the transportation and logistics is a big problem, which we are facing in trying to get our products, though we are mostly sourcing from local. So it's within the 4 states as of now. But that's been a challenge because of the lockdown. But we are hoping that once things ease out, which should at some point, hopefully, that wouldn't be a problem. But apart from that, we are pumping in money for this project. So we are investing with the hope that it's going to work. So we have to go on hope. There's no other way for us.
Okay.
We have to live with a hope.
Yes, all of us are, I think, looking for a very hopeful future, what with the economic depression looming large. So thank you, Renu. We have the next poll coming up. I think it touches the raw nerve. How soon do you think you'll be able to step out and shop like you used to? By the end of this month, not until December. No worries, I'm enjoying shopping online. No money, no shopping. Okay, people seem to be contemplating between not until December to I'm shopping online, and the winner is not until December. So people are still a little positive and they're not enjoying shopping online that much, I think. So it's not until December that people will start shopping. Bina, Okhai, all of you will have hope once our participants start shopping post-December. Okay, thank you, Anshu. We have the next part, which speaks about the marketing. Marketing has always been a challenge for the craft sector. And like Kirti was mentioning about the WhatsApp forwards, all of us have been very dedicatedly forwarding these, because we've never seen, it's been unprecedented that we've received forwards trying to help a craftsman. And not so much for the buying aspect as much as for the helping part of the craftsman who is in need. And as Kirti shed light on the fact that these could actually be fake. So Shilpa, how would you think one can link the market to these alternative products? And would a market exist for these products in these times?
So in my view, we have to work backwards.
Okay.
First, identify the market. Look at what it is that the market wants. Look at what's feeding into the market, and then find ways and means of aligning yourself to those products, to the those who are producing those products, which are going into existing channels. Because look, I mean, the truth is that with marketing having gone digital, it's not easy for just about everybody to be able to tap into that market, right? I mean, Kirti and Bina have both talked about the challenges associated with bridging the gap in communication between an artisan's ability to really put their best foot forward in terms of showcasing their product online. So I'm saying, work backwards. I mean, find people who have a need for textile based product or food product, or let's say turmeric based product, and then go out and actually look for people who are going to be able to service these requirements and work with them. Because I mean, I think all our effort goes into creating stuff, and then we look at it and say, Asha, now what am I going to do with this? How am I going to get this into the market? This isn't a conversation for here, but one of the things that I've been saying in every craft forum that I'm invited to is that the first thing I think the craft sector needs to do is stop producing more and more of what they're already sitting on.
Right.
True.
Because they're doing themselves and the potential market a huge amount of disservice. Because just because you're sitting in yarn doesn't mean that you spend your time, effort, energy into creating more textile. I mean, let's find a way to first deal with the textile that we're already sitting on.
Right.
So really, for me, market linkages are all to be explored from where there is an existing market. Let's go back and see what is it that we need to do to feed this market. I mean, people today who are doing pulses and spices and table foods don't seem to have enough. Look at what I mean, there are these delivery apps, whether it's Big Basket or Grofers or Milk Basket, who I shop from over here. They never seem to have enough stock, of all the stuff local produce that's coming from agri farms around. So I'm saying, let's first figure what is it that the market wants, what is it that the customer wants, and then work backwards from there.
Okay, yeah, that's an excellent way to look at making it actually work, a working model. Bina, designers are a very crucial part, at least we'd like to believe we are, in this entire cycle of crafts. What do you think designers need to do differently now and going forward to help the situation?
Yes, certainly designers like creative artisans are staring at a future with a lot of concerns, and all our studios activities almost have come to stand still in terms of giving for the production. But the very fact that we are educated and the number of skills in diverse disciplines that we are taught, and that is what calls us or makes us designers. I think the time has come to utilize the knowledge of design, and in the app form, in publications, in archiving, in also considering knowledge preserving for the future. There are so many techniques that today as a designer I am fortunate to practice with the artisan, like hand painted kalamkari, but in 10 years down the line that may just become a video which is just demonstrating. I'm not being pessimistic about it, but also in my 2 decades of journey in craft, I've seen that like Telia Rumal almost died down, and the Prince of Jawad almost died, So we have to be, if storing the knowledge is, I think designers can make the most use of the lockdown period to prepare the apps and the tag packs. As Kirti says, now there is going to be an opportunity. I think for a long time, I am a believer that artisans are very intelligent, and anything that is visually expressed along with a demo, they can immediately adopt. So this is the best time for designers to make the videos or apps, or, you won't believe, just before the lockdown, Creative Bee had launched finishing boot camps in fashion and textiles. There were 4 days boot camps, each 3 different disciplines for the graduating students, and self-taught entrepreneurs in fashion and textiles, and those were about to be launched, and lockdown began. So we are not giving up on that. We are now developing a virtual model of that. We are working towards that. And because the finishing boot camps are very essential for designers who are just graduating, there are a lot of things of the reality or ground reality of the work that is demanding from them, which they are not trained for in limited period of time. So, however, the hub and spoke model is another thing that my son has been very fond of, and he's been, he's the next generation in my business now. So he's been saying that let us develop an app which will, will first train the trainees, and then the app, different techniques like ikat and shibori can be clubbed. Okay. And the training programs were done in the villages where huge white space is left and two sides only ikat done. So middle is been converted as a shibori, some value addition, some new line of ancillary workers need a lot of work. So designers can, utilize their time into how they can extend their knowledge, not physically, but also otherwise. And populate it to many other geographical locations. Also, I'm not being pessimistic, but all big brands are shutting the shop across the globe. I'm seeing the news that all those shops, the barricades have been built and their showrooms have glass windows. So, but I think we still have to be optimistic, because the smaller enterprises, MSMEs all over the world are now intensely planning for the next season, that is 2021 spring summer. I've got a lot of inquiries about fabrics coming from all sustainable fabrics, because China has shut down almost, people who work from China thinking that the India is the next best destination. So the designers can be ready with the trends of 2021 spring summer, start preparing in every discipline, home, fashion, and also crafts, and be ready, when the market opens.
Okay, thank you so much. I hope designers have absorbed that, how we need to adapt to the situation. Kirti, can you recommend any NGO or CSR initiatives or marketing schemes that might come forward to facilitate a collective which is working with alternative livelihoods, if it started in a few villages across the country?
Right. So I'm going to acknowledge a very, very powerful initiative called Creative Dignity.
Okay.
Two women, Meera Goradia and Pooja Ratnakar, they have, along with, of course, a wider team, but these two women have been pushing all of us platforms. So what they've done is they've got 4, 5 platforms together. So for example, for Gujarat, they've got Okhai, Jaypore, Aitokri, Gatha together. On the back end, what they have done is that they have created an inventory and an ecosystem of volunteers and designers who are helping artisans catalog their inventory. And they're pushing us to actually take it online and help them sell it. And it's amazing. So they'll schedule timely calls, weekly calls. They'll make sure that we sit down on all those calls and go through all the fabrics and garments that are available. They're also making sure that we don't charge the artisans too much money, and do this as a really good for cause kind of initiative. Mm-hmm. And I think I've seen the government step up in many ways to do relief work, but often people just complain that, nothing is happening. And I love it when people just stand up and they do something.
Yes.
And I think this initiative is something like that. The second one is Hand for Handmade. It's a WhatsApp group that is so powerful, that has brought all the industry leaders together. We have access to everyone in the community. It has built so much strength so that whenever something goes wrong, we come back to the group and we can seek advice from each other. We can all understand that, yes, this is working, this is not working. I think there was a beautiful survey done by Craftizen, which basically helped us understand what is going to work this year. So in many ways, the industry at large has stood up, coming together in these initiatives. and they are going to take the artisans with them. All of this is volunteer work, so it's again very commendable that these people are doing this. Ways in which Okhai is doing the same thing. Whenever we knew of an artisan which was not online, also selling through local means, we taught them how to take photographs on videos. And this is now the first time that they have like a online selling mechanism, and it's really cute to see all of their Instagram pages pop up. On Sundays, we share an artisan's details online. So those that we can't sell through on our platform because they probably don't have photography, etc. We just share their details. So there was a guy called Niti from Niti Handlooms, and he contacted us, and we shared his details. In 2 nights, he sold 90 saris, and we didn't benefit from this, but we earned so much goodwill. And that's what I think the time is for. The time is for being kind.
I think the entire world is coming together in small communities to help each other instead of depending on authorities or governments. And these are very fine examples you shared, Kirti. Thank you so much. So with that, we come to the end of the panel discussion. It's been truly wonderful getting so many insights from all of you here. But we have audience Q&A. So let's look at some of the questions that we can ask. So there is Dr. Abhijit Sarkar, who would like to know, how does COVID-19 bring the relook at the design element, and what sort of changes are going to be new trend in designing? Bina, would you like to address that?
Yes, definitely a new trend is emerging, which is sustainable fashion, which was like an undercurrent for last 2 years, and slow fashion, which is saying that, okay, buy less, but buy qualitative, handmade, environment-friendly products. So there is a shift, complete shift from, designers using the imported Chinese velvet and lycra and the products like that. And people are they have become very conscious about what they are wearing, who made my fabric, that's a slogan, who made my clothes. So
Yes.
they also want to know that artisan and the entire value chain is taken care of, and sustainable clothing is coming in a big way to India also. I mean, I was invited to Hamburg last October,
Okay.
and I could see a very strong trend emerging for sustainable clothing.
Okay.
And we are the source of production, I must say that. We are fortunate to be in India to being able to produce at artisan level textiles and fashion related products, which we can claim to be 100% sustainable, or environment friendly.
Okay.
So that is I think that's a strong trend that I see.
Okay, thank you so much, Bina. There's another question by Swasti Ghai. Will a plug-in of local craft into school education allow for a more valued relation of consumer to craft, produce, and practice? Who would like to take that question?
I'd like to take this question, Namisha. I mean, I think this is a very, very good point that Swasti has made, because I firmly believe that any orientation towards craft, towards an appreciation of the craft, an appreciation of handmade and what is indigenous to us, really has to start in school.
Right.
To expect this to happen, this awakening to happen only if somebody chooses design as a career, to go to design school, is actually hugely misplaced. I mean, I think, this whole, Bina talked about sustainability, right? The truth is that an awareness of, what it means to be green, what it means to be sustainable, what it will, what the implication will be on the choices that we make, our consumption choices. All of this needs to start in school. So yes, I think schools need to start building this into their curriculum a lot more than a whole lot else that they spend their time on, which is not a conversation for here. But, the truth is that if they start in school, the young impressionable minds will start asking questions of their own parents at home, right? They will start making conscious choices which will then stay with them for much, much longer than just the need of the hour today, which is a fad which will come and go. I mean, there is a whole bunch of people out there who will roll back into, life is, what it used to be once upon a time. And there's a whole bunch else for who something has shifted completely, and who will now be far more mindful in their approach to consumption and, every single act, right, of, how they manage their waste, how they consume, how they conserve water, and so on and so forth. So this does need to begin in schools, without a shadow of doubt. And all those people who are today drawing up curriculums for schools and colleges, need to be waking up to this, dire need now.
I'm 100% with you on that, Shilpa. Taking handicrafts or crafts to school, creating a maker's culture where children become more sensitive to the process instead of looking at the craft item as merely something to be bought.
I'd like to use this opportunity. Kirti talked about Kadam Heart, right? They also run an initiative called Potli, which is all about finding ways to bring traditional craft forms into jigsaw puzzles and craft kits and DIY kits for youngsters, right? And these are now marketed at school events around the country. I mean, I think it's a great initiative. It's a great way to get kids to start working with their hands, whether it's Madhubani or whether it's a little block printing, on your t-shirt. I mean, these are little things, but they start at home. They start young.
Yes.
I mean, kudos to Payal and Pooja, for Ratnakar for really having done what they've done with, Potli.
Amazing to hear about Potli. And with this digital generation not being able to leave the devices, I think a maker's culture is so critical starting young. That's great. So we have, I think, time for another question. There is Chris. This is a question for Kirti. Can you share URLs of the initiatives, particularly those involved? Yeah, great.
Share the website, but I'll share the details properly on the Instagram page.
Yeah, great. So Kuldeep would like to know, does the fact that we're searching for alternative livelihoods for craftsmen indicate a failure of government policy and civil societies? Who would like to take this question? Kirti?
I think that India has way too much to do, right?
Okay.
So you may try, all of us will try, but there's just so much scope that will always be pending. So I just feel like I don't feel like holding anything against anyone or any party here, because there is just so much to do.
Okay, great. So that's a very compassionate approach to looking at the problems that stand, I guess, and giving them the benefit of doubt as well. Okay, so I think with that, we can come to the end of this wonderful webinar. Varsha, may I ask you to share your sketch now? Varsha has been busy sketching us all, sketching live. She's a student from NIFT.
She's sketched all of us, huh?
Oh, wow.
Oh.
That's amazing. We have to guess who is who over here. We have the panelists also drawn.
Yeah.
And it's nice, yeah.
Very
And there's Wi-Fi, creative dignity.
Will you be sharing this with us as well?
Yes, yes.
Yes, we'll share it. Yes, I'll share it.
That's wonderful, Varsha. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Varsha.
Thank you.
Good effort.
Subbu, may I call you back in to close this webinar?
Yeah, thank you so much. What a show, guys. Really, I take a bow and really thank you so much for the entire panel for really finding time and during these challenging times. Great effort, guys. And I cannot forget the efforts that Bina Rao had put to put the whole team together, to the whole panel together. Thank you so much, Bina.
My duty.
And of course, Namisha, I know I came to you as requesting for being the moderator in the last minute. Thank you for accepting it without any hassles. Thank you, Namisha.
Thank you for offering.
Yeah, and not to forget the ADI team in the NEC. They've been doing some really great work throughout these COVID times. I mean, look at the series that they have done. I mean, we sitting in Hyderabad thought we should really catch up to the standards the people in Bangalore, Mumbai, and all the other chapters have done. So I think we have done good. Thank you, NEC, for all the support. And not to forget, I also should thank Anshu Ajmani, who's been supporting us. Anshu, you're here?
Yes,
Just want to
I
say
am.
hello to the whole
Thank you.
team. Yeah, thank you, Anshu, for putting all the technical and the logistics together. And not to forget Varsha, Payal, and Yashashvi. They're guys. Are you? If you can just say hello to the whole team. Great. For they've been behind the cameras and behind working the Q&A and all the other technical stuff. Thank you, Varsha, Payal, and Yashashvi. And for all the others who haven't been members on ADI, we are a great community. Please do join us and become a member. There's a lot of interesting stories happening. Earlier we were doing offline and now, of course, online. Please do join us on the website adi.org.in. And thank you again, everyone, for joining this evening. Stay safe.